Imagine you are, like, locked inside a soundproof glass box. You're pounding on the walls, you're screaming until your vocal cords are shredded, and there is someone standing right outside.
Oh, man. That's a terrifying thought.
Right, and they are looking directly at you. Their eyes are open, but they are completely unresponsive.
Like they can't hear a single sound you're making.
Exactly. Now, imagine the person standing outside that box, just staring blankly, is actually you.
Wow. Yeah, that is a deeply unsettling image.
Yeah.
It's this absolute disconnect, where the entity you're desperately trying to reach and, like, save is your own reflection.
Yes, you're simultaneously the victim inside the trap and the architect standing outside of it.
Right. It's a total paradox.
And that profound, terrifying isolation is exactly what we are plunging into today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at a piece of source material that honestly absolutely wrecked me when I started pulling it apart.
It's heavy stuff. Really heavy.
It is. It's the lyrical transcript of Linkin Park's track Talking to Myself off their album One More Light.
Yeah, a phenomenal track.
Oh, for sure. And we're going to put this track on the operating table today because it creates this massive contradiction. We are setting out on a specific mission for this deep dive.
Right. We're staging a debate. High stakes.
Exactly. A high-stakes dialectic debate to answer one core question. Are these lyrics just a raw, desperate, unfiltered cry for help? Or are we looking at a meticulously calculated, poetic observation of self-destruction?
Which is such a great question, because the tension between those two interpretations is, well, it's what makes this text so incredibly dense. When you read through the transcript, you're faced with this emotionally charged piece of writing that constantly shifts its focal point. It flips between the pronoun I and the pronoun you in a way that really destabilizes the listener.
Yeah, you think you're getting one thing, but you're getting another.
Exactly. You think you're hearing a standard breakup song, but the mechanics under the hood suggest something much darker.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we're going to answer our core debate, we have to start with the immediate visceral impact. And this is really where I plant my flag as, I guess, the empath in this debate.
Okay, the empath. I like it. Let's hear the sonic focus.
Right, because when I read this text, and especially when you listen to Chester Bennington's vocal performance on the track, it functions as a live nerve.
A live nerve.
It is pure, unfiltered, highly pressurized anxiety. The speaker isn't like sitting back writing detached poetry. They are actively spiraling.
You really feel that in the delivery.
You do. Look at the frantic cataloging of effort in the pre-chorus. The speaker repeats, all the walls that you keep building, all this time that I spend chasing, all the ways that I keep losing you.
Well, I mean, the repetitive phrasing acts as a structural anchor, sure.
But it's way more than just an anchor. It's a literal physical limitation. I mean, try saying that out loud at the tempo of the song. It's incredibly fast. The staccato delivery of all the literally limits the singer's breath. It mimics the actual physiological symptoms of hyperventilation.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah. The rhythm forces you to rush the words, recreating the literal feeling of a panic attack in the text itself. It's like running on a treadmill that's going way too fast.
So the despair is baked into the vocal grit.
Exactly. It's the frantic pacing of a mind losing its grip, capturing the sheer despair of the moment. The sound itself is the message. You don't even need to understand the English words to feel the isolation.
What's fascinating here is how easily that raw, breathless emotion masks the actual structural brilliance of what's happening.
You think it's a mask?
I do. And this is where I'll step in as the lyricist for our debate. I don't think this is just an unfiltered spiral or, a simple panic attack caught on tape.
Okay, so what is it then?
I'd argue that the linguistic structure reveals a meticulously crafted third-person narrative of the self. This is where the psychological concept of depersonalization comes into play.
Wait, depersonalization, meaning like the mind detaching from the body.
Precisely. Usually when we see I and you in a song transcript, our brains default to assuming a romantic relationship.
Right, like a partner who's pulling away.
Exactly. But look closer at the line, and the truth is you turn into someone else.
Right.
If we read this as an internal monologue, that you isn't a romantic partner at all.
Oh, man.
Right. The speaker is talking to a reflection that is slipping away. It's a calculated clinical observation of a fractured identity.
So you're saying the I in the lyrics is the rational, healthy mind, and the you is the destructive side that's like taking the wheel.
Yes, exactly. The mind is splitting itself to cope with the trauma of its own behavior.
Yeah.
The rational the I is watching the you, which is the self-destructive addict, or the depressive side take over the host body.
That is wild.
And to write about your own mental collapse by splitting yourself into two separate characters, that requires immense poetic detachment. It's an architectural feat of songwriting, not just a frantic journal entry.
I hear that. I really do. But I struggle to accept that level of cool detachment when the text is so intensely desperate.
How so?
Well, if this is a calculated, poetic observation of depersonalization, why include that incredible, agonizing contrast right at the beginning? The line, I can whisper, I can yell.
Well, I mean, it establishes the parameters of communication.
But it establishes the absolute failure of communication. If you are detachedly observing your own fractured identity, you don't experiment with the volume of your voice like a trapped animal trying to find a weak spot in the cage.
I see what you mean.
Right. The sheer desperation of trying different volumes, whispering, then yelling, it shatters any illusion of poetic detachment for me. It's the action of someone who is bargaining, pleading, trying to find the exact frequency that will penetrate the wall they've built around themselves.
It is very raw.
It's the grit in the vocal delivery breaking right through the pop rock sheen of the track. It's the sound of someone breaking down in real time.
Okay, but that whispering and yelling isn't just a communication breakdown. It's an escalation of stakes that perfectly sets up the text's central tragedy.
The central tragedy being the futility of it all.
Exactly. Because if those changing volumes don't get through, we arrive at the realization of total absence. Let's deconstruct one of the most famous phrases in the transcript, lights are on but nobody's home.
People use that phrase all the time as a joke, like, waving your hand in front of a daydreaming friend's face.
They do, and that's exactly why its usage here is so incredibly sharp. The writer strips away the cultural cliché and turns it into a moment of severe poetic futility.
Poetic futility, I like that term.
Yeah, because it perfectly encapsulates the feeling of dealing with a destructive force. Specifically, the ghost of an addiction, or a deeply ingrained toxic habit.
Oh, the ghost of addiction, that fits perfectly.
Think about the mechanics of addiction. The physical body, the lights, is present, the eyes are open, the heart is beating, the lungs are drawing air, but the conscious, rational, moral self, the home, is entirely vacated.
It's just a shell operating on pure compulsion.
Exactly. To describe your own mind, or the mind of someone you desperately love, as an abandoned house where the lights are inexplicably burning, that isn't just a raw expression of pain. That is high-level lyrical craftsmanship.
It really is.
It takes an abstract psychological horror and gives it a terrifyingly domestic visual.
It's haunting when you visualize it as a literal empty house. And honestly, that empty house raises the stakes dramatically because the rational mind isn't just standing outside the house watching it sit there. The house is on fire.
Yeah.
Which brings up the line that literally gave me chills when I read it. I admit I made mistakes, but yours might cost you everything.
Everything is a very deliberate, terminal word choice.
It's total ruin. And I want to ask you, listening right now, have you ever tried to reason with someone or even tried to reason with yourself in the mirror when the stakes are absolute zero?
That is a terrifying place to be.
When you can clearly see that the path you are on is going to cost you your relationships, your career, your life, but the person looking back simply cannot hear you. The frustration in that line isn't poetic.
You think it's more physiological?
Yes, it's like an autoimmune response of the psyche. The mind is attacking itself, but because it's your mind, it perfectly anticipates and neutralizes every defense you try to put up. It's the terror of sitting in the passenger seat of a car that's speeding toward a cliff, and the driver is just staring blankly ahead.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that passenger seat terror is driven by a profound cognitive dissonance. The speaker is hyper-aware of the cliff. They aren't in denial.
No, not at all.
They explicitly recognize the impending doom, stating, "You keep running like the sky is falling." They possess the perfect clarity to diagnose the problem.
They see the disaster coming from miles away.
Yet despite that perfect clarity, they remain entirely powerless to alter the trajectory. Why? Because, as the chorus repeatedly hammers home, they are just talking to myself. The tragedy here isn't a lack of understanding or awareness. The tragedy is the realization that perfect understanding does not equal salvation. Knowing you are broken doesn't magically fix the break. The mind knows it is destroying itself, and it just has to sit there and document the fall.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if the underlying message is this dire, if it's about the inescapable futility of watching your own sky fall, We have to look at the massive contradiction in how this is delivered sonically. We have to talk about the chaos element, the rhythm and the production.
The upbeat tempo of the track.
Yes, the elephant in the room regarding the whole One More Light album, really. When you look at the transcript, there is this undeniable, bouncy pop rock repetition written directly into the text.
Definitely has a groove.
You have these rhythmic hooks.
Talking to myself, ooh, talking to myself, ooh. And staccato, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know. It moves fast, it bounces, it's energetic.
It has a very aggressive, forward-driving momentum. But the content is devastating. I struggle with this upbeat tempo, honestly. When I read these lyrics, it's pure agony. Putting an upbeat, bouncy ooh right next to a lyric about cognitive collapse and total ruin feels incredibly discordant.
You see it as a clash.
Absolutely. As the advocate for the raw, visceral emotion of the track, I have to ask, is this a creative mismatch? Is the band just trying to wrap a bitter pill in a pop hook to sell singles? Or does putting this agonizing mental health struggle into a catchy, bouncy structure somehow disrespect the absolute gravity of the panic attack it's describing?
Well, that's the crux of the debate, isn't it? But I'd argue vehemently that this rhythmic structure is not a mismatch at all. It is a masterstroke of irony.
A masterstroke, really?
Yes. The upbeat tempo is the final, most devastating layer of the track.
But how does an upbeat pop tempo validate a mental breakdown? I mean, it almost sounds cheerful on the surface.
Because that is exactly how chronic self-destruction operates in the real world. When you are stuck in a cycle of severe bad habits, clinical depression, or addiction, the panic eventually becomes routine. The repetitive nature of that chorus, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
it mimics the cyclical, inescapable nature of the speaker's trap. It's the exact rhythm of an intrusive thought.
Wow. It's dark. The panic just becomes like the daily commute.
Exactly. It becomes a groove you're stuck in. The upbeat, rhythmic repetition is the tragedy. It highlights how normalized and mundane this horrific internal situation has become for the speaker.
You're just used to it.
They're just going through the motions of saving themselves. Yeah, I know, I'm doing it again, I'm ruining everything. Yeah, I know. There is a sick, sort of upbeat energy to a manic spiral. Furthermore, that catchy structure acts as an act of deception for the listener.
Wait, an act of deception? How so?
Think about what happens when you hear a catchy pop rock song. You tap your foot, you nod your head, the song tricks you into participating in its rhythm.
Yeah, you just kind of vibe with it.
Yeah, right. You're bouncing along to the cadence of the text, only to suddenly read the lyrics and realize you are dancing inside someone's deepest, darkest isolation. The upbeat melody makes you complicit in the routine of their suffering.
Wow. You're tapping along to the, yeah, I know, and suddenly the floor drops out. You realize you're nodding along to a cry for help that no one is answering.
Exactly. The structure hides the pain in plain sight. And isn't that the truest representation of how mental health struggles actually look?
That's a really profound point.
People fighting these massive internal battles don't always walk around weeping. They mask the profound internal disconnection with a steady, predictable, even upbeat external rhythm. They go to work, they smile, they say, ooh, and yeah, no.
So the pop rock sheen is the mask.
The pop rock sheen of the track is the literal mask the depersonalized speaker is wearing to survive the day.
So what does this all mean then? We started this deep dive with a specific mission, a high-stakes debate. Are these lyrics a desperate, visceral cry for help? The live nerve of anxiety that I argued for? Or is it a calculated poetic observation of depersonalization and self-destruction wrapped in the irony of a pop hook, as you argued?
Well, I think we've reached a point where we have to synthesize these viewpoints. The text's true power relies entirely on the friction between our two arguments.
I completely agree. The absolute brilliance of talking to myself lies in its duality. It isn't one or the other, it is both simultaneously, and that is why it's arguably the most honest type of writing.
The most honest track on the album.
Maybe. Absolutely the most honest track on the entire album.
Honest because it refuses to simplify the human experience into a single, easily digestible emotion.
Right. It uses incredibly precise lyrical craftsmanship, the shifting pronouns, the domestic metaphor of the empty house, the syncopated rhythm to accurately map the messy, illogical, breathless feeling of a panic attack.
It's both art and reality.
It takes the cool, detached intellect of a poet to effectively capture the scorching, uncontrollable heat of a mental breakdown without losing the reality of either. It proves that a song can sound like a stadium anthem while reading like a suicide note.
It forces the raw, bleeding emotion to wear a mask of rigid pop structure. As we established, That tension is the truest representation of someone trying to function in society while quietly falling apart behind their own eyes.
Then for you listening, there is a profound practical application to pulling apart a text like this. The next time you find yourself stuck in a frantic loop of your own thoughts, when you are caught in that hyperventilating rhythm, repeating the same anxieties over and over, building walls against yourself, take a step back.
Look at the text of your own thoughts.
Exactly. Look at the transcript of your own mind. Try to recognize when the rational part of you has vacated the premises. Realize when you were just yelling at an empty house, and give yourself the grace to step outside the cycle.
This raises an important question, though. A final thought for you to carry with you long after this deep dive ends. We started by talking about the psychological horror of being locked in a soundproof box, screaming at your own unresponsive reflection.
Right, the ultimate disconnect of the fractured self.
Yes, but consider the long-term mechanics of that disconnect.
Yeah.
If we spend our entire lives whispering and then yelling at our own reflections, desperately begging ourselves to change our destructive habits, at what point does the "you" we are constantly yelling at actually become the "I" we are trying to save?